My name is Emily Whittemore, and I am a physical therapist. I work full time traveling with the US Snowboard Halfpipe team. I've been working with elite skiers and snowboarders since 2017. In my practice as a physical therapist, I've been working with athletes from recreational, from novice, all the way to elite, pretty much throughout my whole practice. Skiing and snowboarding is something I'm very passionate about. So I'm really happy to share with you today some information about the importance of warm up and cool downs. I feel like that is a component that is often overlooked when people are hitting the slopes, especially for weekend warriors. And I know here in Denver, it is a target demographic that I want to reach out to because I think it is really important that we start to consider the benefits of warm ups and the benefits of cooling down. So, essentially, just kind of diving into it, why do we warm up? Well, one of the best reasons is to improve performance. We'll have faster muscle contraction time, faster reaction time, and essentially just more improvement in our muscle strength and power. That can just help us, especially on that first run, be a little bit ready. I once heard from a therapist that skiing is not a warm up for skiing. Same applies to snowboarding, and it couldn't be more true. Additionally, warm ups increase blood flow to our peripheral muscles, so the muscles that are going to be involved in the activity that we're doing. And that blood flow improves our oxygen delivery to those muscles and allows for better use of them, especially from the get go. Um, Additionally, we also have a psychological preparedness for the activity that we're about to do. So, when people talk about getting your head in the game, a warm up is a great way to do that. And also, finally, it reduces the risk of injury. Okay, so ideally, before we participate in an activity such as skiing or snowboarding, we want to have at least 6 weeks, maybe 2 months of a ski snowboard preparation ahead of time, a workout of some type, and that is the best thing to do. However, a warm up as well can complement that very very nicely to ensure you have a good safe day on the slopes, that you don't pay a PT a visit in the clinic unexpectedly. A good warm up is going to focus on a lot of components, namely mobility, so how our body moves, focusing on strength, activating our stabilizer muscles, so our core, some small glute muscles that'll be involved in skiing or snowboarding. It'll incorporate balance and also reaction time. I want to put an emphasis on reaction time because I think it's really important and, again, often overlooked, especially skiing. Avoiding that rock or that unsuspecting mogul or that rogue skier snowboarder that's zooming past us. We need to be able to be agile, and warming up that reaction time will reduce our risk of things going south pretty quickly in a situation that we need that fast reaction time. When we look at skiing and snowboarding, we want it to be pretty specific to the body parts that we're about to use. So we want to incorporate good mobility for our hips and our spine as well. We also want to engage our core, so get our stomach muscles to start working to support our spine and to support our body, as it is the foundation of all of our movement. When we look kind of moving down the chain, we want to focus on our hip strength. So our hip flexors and our glutes, as well as our quads and our hamstrings. And believe it or not, our calves. The amount of calf strains I've seen in the clinic from the first run, someone leaning forwards unexpectedly and their heels being locked in their bindings. It's quite surprising, and a good warm up could have really prevented some of that. That's it for my intro. Does anyone have any questions before we get kind of started? If not, then we'll just dive right into it. I have 9 exercises here, and some people might say that that is quite a few. However, it is important to kind of draw from some of the exercises here and pick which ones sort of resonate with you. Ideally, you should have enough time to do all 9 of these. A good warm up should be 10 to 20 minutes. Some people say that's a little bit challenging when they're on the hill, but I just ask you to consider some of these movements before you start racing down the slopes. Okay. Additionally, none of them are very fancy because we want to have low equipment, low maintenance, but incorporate all the aspects that we mentioned. Okay. So just move my chair. First one, very basic, just to try to get on our feet and getting moving, is trunk circles or hip circles, excuse me. So just moving your hips back and forth as such. If you're participating along, this is a good time to get up and start going through it. Pretty easy. What we want to do is keep nice and grounded through our feet and do rotation side to side. You know, we'll feel kind of those sticky spots in our spine, maybe our hips, where we're kind of tight. It'll give us an indication of areas that we might want to move into. Doing both directions is great. Typically, I say about 10 reps in each direction. Hands on the hips is just a good way to start kind of getting into your balance, as arms out gets a little bit off balance sometimes. Next step, knee ups and arm raises. So this is a really good one. You can do this in your ski boots. You can do all of these in your ski boots, or you can do them inside the lodge as well. They're all basically able to do them in any environment, okay? So knee ups and arm raises. So timing a knee up with an arm raise as such. So you're already engaging a little bit of balance. And what you can do with these knee ups is you can also incorporate some twists. So knee up and twisting to the right, knee up, twisting to the left. And typically for these, I say 3 rounds on each leg and then moving on to the next. So then left leg, arms up, and you can do a few reps arms up as you gain your balance, and then going from side to side. Now we're starting to incorporate some hip flexion as well as our thoracic mobility, which we'll definitely need when we're skiing and when we're snowboarding. Typically, I say about 2 sets of 3 rounds through for those. You don't have to take notes and everything that I'm saying, because I will provide a PDF at the end of this to all those that have registered. So you can just listen in or participate along. Next, we're going to do the hamstring ground gathers. This one is a really great one. All my athletes love this one because it's very dynamic and you can mix it up a little bit. Essentially, you're going to be putting one leg in front with your foot flexed. Sorry, I'm just going to bring that down. One foot in front with your foot flexed, legs straight. You're going to bring down slowly, and you're going to be feeling a stretch in your hamstring. This is a good active mobility exercise, and you can even do this walking. So then we can do right leg, again, foot flexed up, and then arms down and coming up. And we want to do these nice and slow. We want to try to minimize too much ballistic movements, meaning like fast movements when we're warming up. But we also don't want to hold stretches too long to get into that static stretch. We want them all to be nice and functional. This one you can mix up as well by doing a hamstring gather on each side. And then as you're moving forward, you can even do a lunge with some rotation. So lunge, right foot forward, and rotating towards the bent leg. That is an option to mix things up. The next one I'm a really, really big fan of for getting those small hip abductors working. I call them hip hurdles. So you want to imagine that there is a hurdle next to you and that you're trying to clear it with your hip movement. Get a hand on your hips just to help with balance. We lift our hip up to 90 degrees, bring it out to the side without rotating towards our leg. Rotating leg inwards to clear the hurdle, bringing it back and then down. And then we want to bring it back forward, bending your hip up, out to the side, and then coming through. So we'll do that again one more time. I'll show from the side, bending your hip up to 90 degrees, bringing it out to the side, rotating, extending, trying to keep trunk upright, and then down. Switching left leg, out to the side, rotating, back, and down. And if for those of you that aren't doing this right now, give it a go. It's actually very challenging. And you want to do them nice and slow and controlled so you can get those small glute muscles working. It sounds like a lot, but for an in and out as being 2 reps, I like to do 10 on each side. The next, we're going to get down into the snow or on the ground, depending on where you are. And we're gonna do plank. Plank is a great way to get your core fired up and your back muscles fired up as well. And then we'll also get into the glutes or bum muscles for hip extension. So when we're doing a plank, you can see me okay? What we want to make sure that we're doing is we're not rounding out our back or sticking our bum up too much. We want to have a nice active back, great active core, flat back, and squeezing your glute muscles a bit. If that feels okay to do, you can then incorporate some leg extensions like so. Or if that feels too much, just drop down to your knees. And then you can also do the same there. Typically, I say about 30 seconds for this, and then just moving back and forth, so that way you get your stomach muscles engaged. To complement that, we can do side plank, again, to work on those hip abductors and our obliques. So part of our abs, we're lifting up, and then what we do is extend. I like to do this one on my knee, but we're gonna be extending out and moving in. Extending out and moving in. You want to make sure you have your elbow underneath your shoulder, not out in front, not too far in, and having a good center. You also want to make sure that your body is fully straight in line. So leg out and in, out and in. You can move with breath with that one, but ideally we want to do 30 seconds on each side. It's normal to feel like one side might be harder than the other. That is normal, depending on our imbalances and where we are. But it's also good to pay attention to because we want to try to find that balance. If anyone has any questions, concerns with this, just raise your hand or whatever, and then we can just stop as we go through, but otherwise I'll keep going. So number 6, balance. Well, we want to focus on that. We've got our heart rate up a little bit. Is working on our balance. I like to do eyes open and eyes closed for single leg. You want to think about transferring your weight onto one leg. I'll start with my left, bringing one leg up to 90 degrees. I like to have our hands not on our hips for this one, just so we can kind of work with where we are. Try to keep your trunk upright, not leaning to one side or the other. And try not to claw our toes within our boots or our shoes. See if we can just let our toes relax. Find stability within our core. 20 seconds, eyes open, 20 seconds, eyes closed. Now, eyes closed gets a lot harder because we're taking out that visual information. So I'll suggest you do it in a nice, safe environment where you're not near anything sharp and you can maybe grab onto a wall or something like that, or just put your foot down. 2 sets of 20 seconds is usually enough to just get your body primed for the balance challenges ahead. I talked a little bit about calf injuries, so we want to incorporate our calf raises into this. We're starting to get a little bit more specific into our muscles. So calf raise we can do up and down on 2 legs. If that feels too easy for some of you, because maybe you're runners or something like that, you can always do up on 2, down on 1 leg. Up on 2, down on 1 leg. That negative, we call it, that lowering down, is actually a lot more challenging for our muscles and really good to train into, especially when where our heels are locked in into our ski boots or our snowboard boots. So that way we can get our tendons loading while they're stretching. And that will help reduce our risk of injury as we're riding. Okay, the next 2 are a little bit more physical, a little bit more active. So it's a lunge squat complex and then a little bit of jumping that'll incorporate some reaction time. So the lunge squat complex is essentially a forward lunge, okay, not letting our knees go over our toes, dropping down, not too wide of a step, out to the side, and then back. So we want to try to create a clock so that we can do the same thing on our other leg. Backwards, out to the side, and then forward. Once we've gone around full circle, then we do 2-leg squat, and then single leg squat. Now those are really hard. So if those are too hard for you, you don't have to go too deep. I'll show from the side. Forward, again, not letting this knee go over your toes, trying to stay 90-90, trunk upright, and then out to the side, and then back. Same thing. Okay, and then again, 2-leg squat, trying to sit back as if we're in that ski ready position. We don't want all the weight to be in our heels or on our toes. We want the weight to be in the ball of our feet. Core engaged, back upright. And then for the single leg, again, depending on where you are, you may only be able to go a quarter, that's totally fine. But just for our turns, it's good to warm that up. Going through that set 5 times will definitely warm your legs up. I know it warms mine up. And then the last exercise is the 4-point jumps. So I'm gonna put my face here. The 4-point jumps are great because again, this incorporates a little bit of cardio, but a reaction time, which is something that I think is really important and often overlooked before a day on the slopes, especially if we think we're just gonna ride groomers or stay on piste. It's still really important to get some of that reaction time, get your body primed, get your brain primed for making some of those quick decisions. So the 4-point jumps are, if you can imagine the 4 of a die. So you have point 1, 2, 3, and then 4. You can think of it however you want, however you create that visual. If you're doing this outside in the snow, you can still do this in your ski snowboard boots, and you can actually draw points in the snow. And what we want to do with this is, if you're with a partner or you're skiing, riding with someone, you do 30-second intervals where you call out a number and a direction of rotation to your partner. And then your partner has to respond by jumping to that number and then rotating in that direction. So for example, if I was with a partner and I thought about my die as 1, 2, 3, 4 on the ground, and they said 2 left, I would jump to the second spot and then turn to the left. And then if they said 3 right, jump to the 3 and then turn to the right. And now you can mix it up and make it interesting by saying, like face forward, face backwards, or even saying the same number again, just to kind of throw people off. If you're by yourself, that's fine. You can pick a song, your favorite song with a great beat. If you're a fan of The Office, I like the Staying Alive song because it has a really good consistent rhythm. And so if you jump on every other beat, it's actually a pretty good pattern for 30 seconds of doing this. And then you can just call them out for yourself. 3 right. When you're calling it out for yourself, you're not really sure necessarily what that movement pattern is going to look like. So then you can just follow through with it. And I think those are probably some of the most important ones before we hit the slopes, just to get our body ready. So that's it. It does seem like a lot, I'm sure, probably more than a lot of you are actually used to doing before a day on the hill. But actually, it's very, very helpful to run through, again, those components of mobility, looking at activating your stabilizers, focusing on your balance, and again, engaging in your action time. Some of these exercises might also look really familiar, but you may have done them a little bit differently, and that's okay too. This is just something that I recommend that's like a full picture, and will address every body part that you're going to be using on the slopes. So now we're moving into the cool down. Why do we want to cool down? What's so great about that afterwards? Why not just ride down the hill, go to the bar, sit down and have a beer? Well, we want to essentially gradually reduce our heart rate, because that will help with regulating our blood pressure as well, and it'll prevent blood pooling into our legs. We don't want that, because that can have negative repercussions of dizziness, fainting, those types of things. Additionally, it also helps clear lactate buildup in our body, which is the byproduct of our working muscles in an oxygen-limited environment. It'll improve our recovery time. So it'll get you on the slopes tomorrow with less dead leg feeling, or the delayed onset of muscle soreness feeling that we call DOMS. It'll reduce the likelihood of that. And then for you, Doug, for biking, it'll reduce that heavy leg feeling when you're going to be spinning. So Some of the best things that you can do just to start off on a cool down is just 10 minutes of light aerobic activity. Aerobic activity such as spinning, walking, like swimming. Some people like to do a little bit of a jog, anything like that. Even just going for a little stroll will help gradually reduce that heart rate and get the blood flowing through your body. I'm a big fan of yoga moves for cooling down as well, or promoting recovery. So one thing I like to do is just a downward dog flow, and I'll demonstrate that now. Typically doing it about 5 times through because it gets into really all parts of the body. So starting in the downward dog position, our hamstrings would already be warm, so would our calves. So we go into that downward dog where we want to have that flat back, moving forward into the plank that we have already done in our warm up, coming down and then doing some extension of the low back. However, that's comfortable. Doesn't have to be really high, can actually even be just a little bit. Trying to draw the shoulders away and extending through the mid back, and then coming back into just child's pose. This is a nice one because it allows us to stretch our lats, which we may have used as we were skiing. And then walking our hands out to the side, we'll get into that low back and into the side body and into the lats on the other side. And then you can walk your arms out to both sides. And then running through that sequence 5 times is a really nice way to keep your body moving. And then working through some of the mobility you may have achieved as well through your activity. Hips are definitely a big, tight zone for a lot of skiers, snowboarders. Sorry, I keep moving the camera. But this is a really great one for hip mobility. So sitting in a position facing forward, I have my right leg out in front of me, turned to 90 degrees. And then I'll have my left leg behind doing the same thing. So it kind of looks like a little bit of a pinwheel, if you will. Now, depending on if this is comfortable for you or not, there's a lot of modifications. Some people, this is really hard to get in this position, and in which case I can show you modification afterwards. Some people, this is fine and they can progress from there. But just doing a little bit of this, sitting in this position, trying to get over to the left hip that's down, maybe trying to lift your left foot off the ground. So you're trying to work into that hip, what we call internal rotation, bringing your hip in while keeping your trunk upright. And then you can work on turning to the side without using your hands and doing the same thing on the other side. So again, that 90-90 position, working on that internal rotation and moving back and forth. Trying to keep your core engaged, not dumping too much to the low back. Again, this is hard for some people. So an easier one to do is to start off is just try to go what we call windshield wipers in an upright position. So moving our hips from side to side as comfortable as you can. You can hang out in those positions as well for up to a minute at a time. That's okay to do. We like static movements in our cool downs, which we'll get to in a minute. Static just means, sorry, I have a little bit of a notice here. Static just means holding it for an extended period of time. So now we've kind of worked in our hips, what we call the internal and external rotation. What we'll work on is just stretching your hip flexors, which can sometimes be tight. So the way I like to do these is we'll start with right leg forward, left leg back. Core is always engaged. We don't want to dump through our low back too much. We want to have our bum muscles engaged, bringing our pelvis upwards, and then moving forward into that front leg. Again, not dumping through the low back, trying to keep that pelvis in a neutral position. So we should feel stretch through the front of the back leg. For some people, this is enough. I like to also do a little bit of movement with this, where we lift that back leg, so left arm up, and then go to the side. I'll show this from another view in a second. And then moving in and out of that stretch for up to 2 minutes doing this. Getting into that hip will feel really good at the end of a long day. So I'll show you with the other leg forward. So now I've got left leg forward, right leg back, squeezing my glutes, keeping my pelvis neutral, and leaning forward to feel that stretch in the front of the back leg. Again, right arm up, and then coming to the side. You'll start to feel a stretch to the whole kind of obliques, as well as sometimes even to the shoulder, and just moving in and out of that. You don't want to move as far as you can so you strain any muscles. You can just move into a comfortable range. Next one, hamstrings. Those definitely got a good workout. There are so many ways to do a hamstring stretch. A lot of people know the hamstring stretch where you sit on the ground, and I wanted to demonstrate that one to you because I want to show you how you should do it. So if we want to just purely get into our hamstring, and let's focus on our right leg, we can have our left leg bent to the side. We want to rock up on our pelvis so we're facing that right leg. And what we want to do again is not dump through that low back. So rock up onto our little sits bones. And we want to keep our chest nice and tall and try to get a little bit of a lean forward. It's a misconception that we need to touch our foot and bend our back. We can actually get a really good stretch of the hamstring just by staying in this position and upright. For me, this is as far as I need to go. If I want to get a little bit of stretch in my low back and really bend over, then I can once I've reached that position. But I just recommend staying tall through your chest and through your hips and just rocking forward and bending over your leg. If it's really tight, you can bend your knee a little bit, but you want to try to feel that stretch in the hamstring and the back of the leg. For these types of stretches, you can hold them anywhere for 30 seconds to 2 minutes. Last two, they get into our glutes. We'll start with the figure 4. This one you can do laying on your back or sitting like so. You want to cross, so we'll take our right leg, cross it over our left knee. You may have done this one before. It's pretty common. Keep your foot nice and flexed and lean towards that bent right knee. You should feel the stretch in your glute area. If you feel it in your low back or if you feel it too much in your hip, what you can do is you can get on your back and then you can bring that left leg inwards and see if you can bring that right leg out. Again, if you feel it too much in your hip, you can back off and try to work so you can feel that stretch in the outside of the knee that is bent. So for me, it's my right leg. If I'm going to switch sides, I can bring my right leg down, left leg over, and then across. Again, we should feel a stretch in our glute. This is a great one. You can hold it, again, 30 seconds to 2 minutes. And then last one, pigeon. This one's tough for a lot of people. So there are modifications that you can do. You can use blocks, or you can just stick with that figure 4. I like this one because it incorporates a bit of the other hip as well. So in a plank position, we're going to start with our right knee to our right wrist and our right ankle to our left wrist. So we're in a similar position as we were in figure 4. And then we're going to walk our left back leg out a bit. So we're in a position where we're stretching this and also getting a much deeper stretch into that right glute. If this one's sore in your knee or your low back at all, again, there are modifications that we can do. Again, putting a block underneath your hip is a good one. But ideally, if you find that good comfortable spot and you can lean over, then you can get a good deep stretch again for up to 2 minutes. And then other side, again, left knee, left wrist, left ankle, right wrist. And then in that comfortable position, you can hang out there. All right, so that's it. So now you've successfully warmed up, had a great day on the slopes, ideally, and then had a good cool down. Again, one thing that I say is paramount is making sure that you get that 10 minutes at the beginning of your cool down where you're really keeping moving. So again, walking, spin on a bike, the easy spin on a bike or a swim, something along those lines is great and really helps reduce some of that soreness and improves that recovery. Does anyone have any questions? Well, if not, thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you got some good information out of that. Again, I will be sending a PDF of all the stretches and exercises that we did with my recommended sets and reps and duration of it. If you have any questions or you have any comments, I'd love to hear back from you. Maybe some warm-up favorites that I haven't included in this that you enjoy doing. I'd love to hear that as well. And also, just so you know, I am offering a 6-week prehab program that we can direct towards ski and snowboard specific athletes. So if you are interested in getting fit for the upcoming ski snowboard season, I'd be more than happy to work with you. I've designed a strengthening and mobility program designed to get you from where you are to where you want to be. So if you have questions or are interested in something along those lines, I'll include a link to that when I email out the PDF, and you can check it out on the Invincible website. And if not, that's great. It's great to work with you guys, and hopefully you had some good ideas for this upcoming season, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Very good. Thank you, Emilie.
Thanks so much for joining, Doug. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, Emilie. Thank you.
Thanks, Samantha.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Bye.